When did karma backhand someone pretending to be a victim, exposing their real plan? Story 1. A woman in my apartment building always acted like she was being bullied by her upstairs neighbor. She claimed he stomped around to intimidate her, slammed doors, and even banged on her ceiling. She made multiple noise complaints to the landlord, constantly crying about how unsafe she felt. The neighbor, a quiet guy who worked nights, was baffled but tried to ignore it. One day she came to a tenant meeting in tears, saying she'd caught him throwing things onto her balcony. The landlord was ready to start eviction proceedings until the security footage was checked. Turns out, the woman herself had been the one tossing trash onto her own balcony, then filming it for evidence. The footage even caught her rehearsing her crying before knocking on the landlord's door. She was served an eviction notice within the week, and the bully upstairs got a written apology from management. Story 2. At work, a guy claimed our supervisor was harassing him after being written up for repeated tardiness. He told HR that she was targeting him for personal reasons and even broke down in tears during the meeting. HR took it seriously, suspended her while they investigated, and everyone whispered about how she might lose her job. But then IT pulled his emails, and there were dozens of messages he'd sent to friends bragging about finally having something to get her fired. The worst part? He'd sent one email to his personal account that literally said, "All I have to do is keep saying I feel unsafe and they'll have to get rid of her." He was fired on the spot, and she came back to work with a raise. Story 3. A high school classmate of mine spread rumors that a teacher had grabbed her arm aggressively when telling her to stop vaping in the bathroom. She was crying in the principal's office, saying she felt violated and scared to come to class. Parents were getting involved, and it looked like the teacher's career might be over. Then the security cameras were checked. Not only did the footage show the teacher standing several feet away, but it also caught my classmate putting the vape pen in her pocket and smirking before walking in to fake cry for the principal. Her parents were shown the footage right there. She was suspended for 3 weeks, and the teacher was cleared immediately. The rumor mill turned on her overnight. Story 4. My cousin's ex-wife told everyone he was an abusive drunk. She cried to his family, showed up at church talking about escaping a dangerous marriage, and even filed for a restraining order. He was devastated, until his lawyer got the judge to approve pulling GPS data from her phone for the nights she claimed he attacked her. Every single time she alleged abuse, she was actually at her boyfriend's apartment 2 towns over. When the truth came out in court, the judge not only dismissed her restraining order but also warned her about perjury. The kicker? Her boyfriend broke up with her that same week after realizing she'd been using him as an alibi. Story 5. In my office, a co-worker accused another of stealing her work and taking credit with the boss. She acted devastated, saying she'd been working nights to finish a major client project only for him to present it like it was his. She even posted about workplace betrayal on LinkedIn, getting sympathy comments. The boss started investigating, leaning toward believing her, until they checked the document logs. Every single edit on the project was made from his account, while hers had 0 activity. The only thing she'd done was rename the file with her name on it and email it to herself. She was caught red-handed and quietly resigned before the official firing could hit her record. Story 6. At my old university, a student claimed her roommate had been stealing her clothes and damaging her belongings. She made a big show of crying in the dorm group chat, even posting pictures of ripped shirts and saying she feared for her safety. The RA was about to reassign her roommate when another student, suspicious of her theatrics, checked the floor's shared laundry room camera. The footage showed her cutting her own shirts with scissors, then stuffing them in the laundry to look dirty. She'd been staging the damage for weeks in hopes of getting a single room. Instead, she was moved into a smaller, less desirable dorm and had to attend a meeting with the dean about falsifying complaints. Her victim roommate got an upgraded single room and a semester's rent refund. Story 7. My aunt's neighbor was infamous for causing drama in the HOA. One summer, she claimed that a family down the street had threatened her when she asked them to trim their hedge. She told the HOA board she was living in fear and demanded fines against the family. The board was about to side with her when the family requested to submit their Ring doorbell footage. It showed her walking up to their property, screaming profanity, and snapping branches off the hedge herself before storming away. The so-called threat was just the father telling her she was trespassing. She left the HOA meeting red-faced, and within a month, she quietly put her house up for sale. Story 8. A guy in my office claimed his female co-worker made inappropriate advances toward him. He cried in HR, saying he just wanted to feel safe, and accusing her of stalking him in the parking lot after work. HR suspended her while they investigated. When security pulled the parking lot cameras, they saw something different. He'd been waiting in his car until she left, then following her halfway home before turning around. He was trying to build a case against her so he could take over her accounts when she got fired. Instead, he was escorted out of the building the next morning, and she came back to work to find her entire team wearing welcome back shirts. Story 9. When I was in high school, a kid tried to frame another for vandalizing the principal's car. He claimed he saw the other student scratching the paint with keys during lunch break, even giving a fake time and location. Teachers were ready to suspend the accused student, but before that happened, the principal checked the security tapes. They caught the accuser himself, crouching next to the car, scratching it, then jogging back inside and asking the secretary for a pen to write down what he saw. His parents had to pay for the repairs, and the principal made him apologize over the school's PA system. Story 10. A neighbor of mine filed a noise complaint against a young couple, claiming they had wild parties every weekend, and that she was losing sleep from the racket. She even brought in audio recordings she said were from her apartment. The city was considering fines until the couple pointed out that the recordings were suspiciously clear for being through walls. The city's inspector decided to visit unannounced one Saturday night and found the neighbor blasting party music in her own apartment with the windows open, trying to record it to frame them. She ended up getting the fine herself for violating noise ordinances, and the couple got a written apology from the building management. Story 11. At a community theater, one actress claimed the director had unfairly cut her lines out of jealousy. She went on Facebook, posting teary rants about toxic leadership and being silenced. The posts gained traction, and people started talking about boycotting the play. The director, tired of the drama, released rehearsal footage, unedited, from the days leading up to her being cut. It showed her repeatedly skipping rehearsals, forgetting lines, and making jokes while others tried to work. The final straw was her refusing to perform a scene unless her friend got a bigger role. Overnight, her supporters went quiet, and she deleted all her posts. Opening night sold out without her. Story 12. In my old job, a guy pretended to be sick so he could take a week off. He told everyone he had food poisoning from the cafeteria and even said he was thinking of suing. The cafeteria workers, terrified for their jobs, were called into HR. But when the company checked his corporate credit card activity, it showed him in another state, charging meals at beachside restaurants the entire week. Worse, he'd posted vacation photos to his private Instagram, forgetting a coworker followed him. HR not only fired him for fraud, but also made him reimburse the company for his paid sick days. The cafeteria staff got a formal apology and a catered appreciation lunch. Story 13. My cousin worked at a daycare where a parent accused her of grabbing a child roughly during pickup. The parent made a scene in front of other families, saying she was calling CPS. My cousin was devastated, especially since she'd never had a complaint in her career. The daycare director pulled security footage, and it showed the parent's child running toward the street while the parent was on her phone. My cousin had gently caught the child by the arm, to stop them from darting into traffic. The parent's face went pale when she saw it. She left without saying a word, and the director sent the video to every parent as a reminder of why staff intervene when kids are unsafe. Story 14. A classmate in college told everyone our professor was sexist because he'd failed her paper and refused to explain why. She cried during a student council meeting, saying she was being targeted. The council pressured the department head to review the grade. When they did, they found her paper was plagiarized, entire paragraphs copied from online articles. The professor had sent her the plagiarism report weeks earlier, but she conveniently left that part out. When the truth came out, she lost her scholarship for academic dishonesty. The professor was vindicated, and she became known around campus as Copy-Paste Girl. Story 15. A neighbor once claimed my dog attacked her while she was jogging. She posted in our neighborhood group about being traumatized and even showed a ripped sleeve as proof. She demanded I pay her medical bills. I was panicked until I remembered my security cameras cover part of the sidewalk. The footage clearly showed her jogging past, stopping, and then tugging at her sleeve until it tore. My dog was behind a locked gate the entire time, wagging his tail. I posted the video in the same group. The comments turned on her instantly, and she ended up deleting her account. Story 16. At my brother's company picnic, a coworker accused the head chef of serving expired food and claimed her stomach hurt from eating the barbecue. She made a huge scene in front of everyone, demanding the event be shut down before others get sick. People started to panic, and the chef looked ready to pack up. But then the event coordinator remembered they had live-streamed most of the picnic on the company's Facebook page. The footage showed her tossing half her plate in the trash, sneaking to her car, and eating fast food from a drive-thru before returning to complain. She left before dessert was served, and the chef got a standing ovation. Story 17. In my apartment complex, a man claimed a delivery driver screamed at him and threatened to break into his unit over a missing package. He called the police and posted about it on the community forum, saying he feared for his life. The delivery company immediately put the driver on leave. But when police reviewed the driver's body cam footage, it told a different story. The man had opened his door, screamed at the driver for being late, and then threw the box into the hallway, damaging the contents. The driver never raised his voice. The man had to make a public apology to keep from being sued, and the driver got his job back with a raise. Story 18. In high school, a girl accused another student of keying her car in the parking lot. She cried in the principal's office, saying she knew who did it because they'd had an argument earlier that day. The accused student denied it, but everyone sided with the crying girl until the janitor remembered there was a new security camera covering that row. The footage showed the girl herself, dragging her keys along the side of her own car, clearly glancing around to make sure no one was watching. When she saw the video, she didn't even try to defend herself. Her parents had to pay for the repainting, and she was banned from driving to school for the rest of the year. Story 19. A guy in my friend's office pretended to have been injured by a faulty chair. He claimed it collapsed under him, causing a back injury, and demanded a hefty workers' comp payout. He even came in with a back brace, walking stiffly and groaning dramatically. The insurance investigator requested the office's security footage, and it showed him slowly lowering himself onto the floor, then kicking the chair over. He looked straight at the camera before faking the fall. Needless to say, his claim was denied, he was fired, and the company sent the footage to the insurance fraud department. Story 20. My cousin's neighbor claimed a local construction crew destroyed her fence while working on a nearby road. She called the city, filed a damage report, and demanded thousands in compensation. The city engineer was ready to approve it, until a crew member produced dash cam footage from his truck. It showed her walking outside with a hammer and deliberately smashing her own fence posts while glancing toward the construction site. She'd hoped to blame them for repairs she'd been putting off for years. Instead of a payout, She got a fine for filing a false claim. Story 21. At my old job, a woman claimed a coworker had stolen her engagement ring from her desk. She was in tears, saying it was a family heirloom, and she demanded security call the police immediately. The accused coworker was panicking because everyone looked at him like a thief. Security checked the cameras, expecting to see someone rummaging through her things, only to find her slipping the ring into her purse at lunchtime, leaving for an hour, then returning to stage the discovery. Turns out, she had pawned it earlier that day to cover some personal debt, and thought framing someone else would buy her time. She was fired before the police even left the building. Story 22. In my neighborhood, a man claimed a teenage boy on our street had thrown rocks at his car, shattering the rear window. He called the police and even brought out pieces of glass to prove it. The boy was scared stiff, swearing he'd been home the whole time. Then a neighbor pulled footage from their driveway camera. It showed the man accidentally backing into a lamppost while pulling out of his driveway. The impact shattered his own rear window, and he spent the next 5 minutes sweeping glass into a bucket before calling the cops. He was fined for filing a false report, and his evidence was entered as proof against him. Story 23. At a charity event, a volunteer accused another of pocketing donation money. She told the organizer she'd seen him slip bills into his pocket instead of the lockbox. The accused was quietly pulled aside, embarrassed and defensive. The organizer checked the venue's security feed, and it showed her opening the lockbox when no one was around, taking out cash and then looking over her shoulder before calling the organizer over. The irony, she had no idea there was a second camera behind the stage aimed right at the donation table. She was arrested before the event ended, and the accused volunteer was thanked on stage for his work. Story 24. In college, a student accused her roommate of hacking her laptop and deleting an important essay. She went to the housing office saying she wanted to press charges for academic sabotage. It investigated and found something she hadn't expected. Her own browsing history showed multiple visits to the trash folder, where she'd deleted the file herself just minutes before emailing the housing office. She'd done it so she could request an extension from her professor, blaming her roommate for the lost work. When confronted, she burst into tears, saying it was just a joke. But she still had to face academic discipline for false accusations. Story 25. A man at my gym accused another member of breaking his expensive headphones by yanking them off a locker hook. He demanded the gym pay for replacements, claiming the other member had been aggressive toward him before. The gym manager reviewed the hallway camera, and there was the accuser, tugging his own headphones while trying to remove his jacket, snapping the wire in the process. The supposed aggressor was nowhere near him. When the footage was shown to the man, he tried to laugh it off, but the manager banned him for a month for lying and attempting to extort the gym. Story 26. At a wedding I attended, the groom's cousin claimed the bride had screamed at her and thrown a drink during the rehearsal dinner. She sobbed to family members, saying she felt humiliated and almost didn't want to attend the wedding. It caused serious tension with whispers about the bride's true colors. But the venue had security cameras, and when the groom checked, the footage showed the cousin spilling her own drink, looking around, then dramatically storming out as if something had happened. She'd been upset that she wasn't chosen as a bridesmaid and wanted to stir drama. The family watched the video together that night, and by morning, she wasn't invited to the ceremony at all. Story 27. In my old workplace, a guy claimed his boss made racist jokes in front of him during a meeting. He filed a formal complaint, insisting there were witnesses. HR was ready to take action until the meeting recording was pulled. Not only was there no inappropriate comment, but the recording caught him whispering to a coworker afterward that this will be enough to get him out. The coworker, disgusted, handed over text messages where he bragged about wanting the boss fired so he could get promoted. HR didn't just dismiss the complaint. They escorted him out the same day and documented everything for his next employer to see. Story 28. A girl in my university dorm claimed another student had pushed her down the stairs after an argument. She limped around on crutches, saying she'd bruised her leg badly. The accused student was terrified, knowing such an accusation could get them expelled. But a fellow resident showed footage from the stairwell camera. It revealed the injured girl deliberately sitting on the steps, rubbing her leg for a moment, and then limping into the common room. She hadn't even fallen. When confronted by campus security, she admitted she wanted to get the other student removed so she could have the room to herself. Instead, she was the one removed from housing. Story 29. My neighbor accused the local mail carrier of stealing a package with expensive electronics. He filmed himself shouting at the mailman in the driveway, posting it online for sympathy. The post went viral in our small town. The USPS investigated and found the neighbor had signed for the package himself 2 days earlier, with the delivery confirmation photo clearly showing it on his porch. Even better, the same camera he used for his video had also captured him carrying the package inside. The viral post was deleted, but not before the truth spread. The mailman got dozens of cards from residents thanking him for his work. Story 30. At a youth soccer game, one parent accused the referee of calling fouls only on their kids' team out of bias. He yelled across the field, claiming he'd caught the ref saying something against them during a break. Parents began booing the referee until another dad, who had been recording the whole game, played back the supposed moment. The audio was crystal clear. The referee was chatting about the weather, not the game, and the bias claim was completely fabricated. The accuser tried to argue, but the crowd turned on him, and the league banned him from attending games for the rest of the season. Story 31. At a local town hall meeting, a woman accused the mayor of ignoring her repeated safety complaints about a broken streetlight near her home. She waved a stack of letters she claimed to have sent, telling the crowd she'd been begging for months for action. The mayor calmly asked the clerk to check the incoming mail records. There wasn't a single letter from her address in the past year. Then another resident spoke up, saying he'd seen her walking past the supposedly broken streetlight every night, lit up perfectly fine. It turned out she wanted the light removed because it shone into her bedroom window. The room went dead silent, and she left before the meeting ended. Story 32. In my office, a temp worker claimed another employee had locked her out of a shared project folder on purpose to sabotage her work. She emailed management with screenshots of the access denied message, making herself look like the victim. IT looked into it and discovered the truth. She'd removed her own access the day before through her admin permissions, then taken the screenshot to frame him. Dick. The kicker? She didn't know IT could see every permission change and exactly who made it. She was escorted out of the building before lunch, while the guy she tried to frame got a permanent position offer. Story 33. A student at my high school claimed the basketball coach had benched her because she refused to date him. The accusation spread like wildfire. Parents, players, and even local reporters started asking questions. The school pulled practice footage to review. The video showed her repeatedly skipping conditioning drills, ignoring instructions, and openly texting on the bench during games. There wasn't a single inappropriate interaction. When the truth came out, the local news ran a correction story. She transferred schools soon after, and the coach was greeted with applause at the next home game. Story 34. A man in our building told everyone the new neighbor had stolen his bike from the storage area. He even posted blurry security screenshots in the group chat, claiming they showed the neighbor walking away with it. The building manager reviewed the full footage, and it showed the man himself wheeling the bike out the back door, loading it into his truck, and later coming back to plant it behind a dumpster so he could find it and get sympathy. Management fined him for misuse of the security system, and the neighbor he tried to frame got free storage for a year. Story 35. At a corporate training retreat, one participant accused another of mocking her accent during a group exercise. She gave an emotional speech about feeling unsafe and disrespected, and the trainers looked ready to remove the accused from the event. Then, someone who had recorded the exercise for notes played it back. What the accused had actually said was a direct quote from the activity's prompt. No mockery, no accent imitation, nothing offensive at all. The accuser's face went beet red as the whole group stared at her. She skipped the rest of the retreat while the accused ended up being chosen to lead the next exercise. Story 36. At a neighborhood block party, a man claimed a teenager had scratched his vintage car while carrying folding chairs past it. He loudly demanded the teen's parents pay for a full repaint. The situation was tense until another neighbor who had been filming the live music checked his phone footage. In the background, the car was already scratched before the teen ever walked by, and a few seconds later the man was caught on camera, accidentally, bumping the door with a metal cooler handle while setting up his own chairs. He tried to brush it off as old damage, but everyone had seen the clip by then. The parents didn't owe a cent. Story 37. At my last job, an employee claimed a coworker screamed at her in the break room over a scheduling issue. She even went as far as telling HR she felt physically threatened. The accused was suspended while HR pulled camera and audio from the break room. The footage showed her being the one to yell first, slamming her mug on the table and cursing, while the other co-worker just sat there eating a sandwich. HR reinstated him the next morning, while she got a formal warning for creating a hostile work environment. She stopped taking breaks in the break room after that. Story 38. A guy in my condo building claimed the elevator malfunctioned and trapped him for nearly half an hour. He demanded the HOA waive his next 3 months of fees for emotional distress. The elevator maintenance company checked the logs. It had stopped for exactly 1 minute and 30 seconds because he'd pressed the emergency stop button himself. Security footage from inside showed him calmly sitting on the floor, scrolling his phone, then pressing the alarm button and pretending to panic when the building manager arrived. The HOA denied his request and fined him for misuse of emergency equipment. Story 39. In college, a student reported her professor for losing her final project and failing her as retaliation for speaking out about grading policies. She made a scene in the department office accusing him of being unprofessional. IT pulled her account records. It showed she had deleted the project file from the shared server herself 2 days after submission. The kicker? She had also emailed herself the file and forgot to delete that copy. When confronted, she admitted she was hoping for a free retake of the class. Instead, she failed and was put on academic probation for dishonesty. Story 40. A man at a dog park accused another owner's German Shepherd of biting him. He rolled up his sleeve to show a small cut, telling everyone the dog was aggressive and shouldn't be allowed there. The owner was shocked. Her dog had been on a leash the whole time. A bystander who'd been filming his own dog pulled up the footage. The man had tripped over his own feet and scraped his arm on a bench before approaching the German Shepherd. The dog never even touched him. When the truth came out, he left without saying a word, and the park regulars still joke about bench attacks whenever he's around. Story 41. At a summer camp, one counselor accused another of locking a camper in a cabin as punishment. She told the camp director the child had been crying for nearly an hour and claimed she had to break them out. The director immediately paused activities to investigate. But when they checked the cabin cameras, the so-called locked-in camper was laughing, playing a board game, and the door was never even shut all the way. The accuser had told the child to pretend so she could make the other counselor look bad and angle for a promotion. Instead, she was told to pack her things and was off the premises before dinner. Story 42. In my city's community choir, one singer accused another of deliberately singing over her solo during rehearsal to make her look bad. She made a tearful speech about how women should support each other, earning sympathy from half the group. The choir director reviewed the rehearsal recordings and found the opposite. The soloist had paused completely, and it was the accuser who jumped in with off-key ad-libs to disrupt the performance. The reveal was played for the whole group at the next rehearsal. The director quietly reassigned her to the back row for the rest of the season. Story 43. A co-worker at my last job claimed she'd been harassed by the new manager because he didn't invite her to an important client meeting. She sent HR a long email accusing him of discrimination and favoritism. When HR checked the meeting logs, it turned out she had been invited 3 times, via email, calendar request, and a verbal reminder, but she'd declined because she had yoga. She didn't realize email replies are stored. When they showed her own written, "I'll skip, it's yoga day," she turned beet red. The complaint was dismissed, and she ended up excluded from actual important meetings afterward. Story 44. In my apartment building, a man accused the cleaning staff of stealing his watch from his bathroom. He confronted them in the hallway, yelling loud enough for neighbors to hear. Management checked the hallway and unit entry logs. No staff had entered his apartment for 3 days. A few hours later, another tenant posted in the building group chat, "Hey, is this your watch?" It had been found on the laundry room counter, right next to the vending machine, in plain sight. The man tried to claim he'd put it there to catch the thief, but nobody believed him. He hasn't made an accusation since. Story 45. During a charity marathon, a participant accused the race organizers of losing her medal and giving it to someone else. She took to social media saying she'd been robbed of her achievement, and the post gained hundreds of shares. The organizers reviewed finish line footage. It showed her crossing the line, receiving her medal, then handing it to a friend in the crowd before walking away. When asked, she admitted she'd given it to her friend because she didn't like the ribbon color, but thought the drama would get her a replacement. Instead, the marathon publicly posted the clip with the caption, "Found your medal." The shares doubled, but this time with laughter. Story 46. At a family reunion, one relative claimed her sister had stolen a designer purse she brought. She loudly accused her in front of everyone, saying she'd last seen it in the guest bedroom where her sister was staying. The mood turned tense until one of the kids who'd been filming a TikTok accidentally caught the victim herself stuffing the purse into her trunk earlier that morning. She had planned to find it later and make the sister look bad to get sympathy from older relatives. Instead, everyone saw the video, and she left the reunion within an hour. Story 47. In high school, a student claimed the cafeteria staff had served her spoiled chicken and that it made her sick. She posted pictures of the food online, calling the school unsafe. The principal took it seriously and ordered an inspection until security footage from the lunch line showed her taking the chicken, scraping it onto a napkin, and sprinkling something from a plastic bag onto it. The spoiled look came from her own prank seasoning. When confronted, she admitted she wanted to get the cafeteria shut down to extend lunch breaks. She got suspended instead. Story 48. At my old workplace, an employee accused a teammate of crashing the company database during a big client project. He told the boss the teammate had made reckless changes and sabotaged weeks of work. IT dug into the server logs and found the accuser himself had deleted a set of critical files by accident, then immediately logged in under his teammate's credentials. He'd guessed the password from watching him type. The logs also showed him Googling how to recover deleted SQL tables minutes later. He was fired for both sabotage and unauthorized access, and the teammate got a public apology from the boss. Story 49. At a friend's wedding, one of the bridesmaids claimed the photographer had lost all the pictures she was in. She cried to the bride, saying it ruined her memories of the day. The photographer, visibly upset, checked the raw files. Her pictures were there, but in almost every one, she was pulling faces or looking at her phone. She deliberately acted bored in photos to get attention, then tried to spin it as the photographer's fault. The bride showed her the untouched shots in front of the bridal party. She stopped complaining, but everyone noticed she didn't post a single wedding photo afterward. Story 50. In my apartment complex, a man accused another tenant's toddler of scratching his luxury car with a toy. He demanded they pay for a full repaint and threatened to call the police. The father, shocked, pulled up the parking lot footage. It clearly showed the man himself brushing against the car with a ladder while fixing something in his trunk earlier that day. The toddler had never gone near the vehicle. The man quickly changed his story to maybe it was already there, but the building manager fined him for a false claim and banned him from using the shared garage for a month. Story 51. At a company holiday party, one employee claimed another had spilled wine all over her expensive dress on purpose. She dramatically announced it in front of management, saying she'd be sending the cleaning bill to HR. Before HR could act, the event photographer showed a sequence of candid shots. She had bumped into a waiter carrying a tray of drinks, then turned and pointed at her coworker as if he had done it. The photos made the rounds in the office group chat that same night. She never sent the bill, and by Monday, she was avoiding eye contact with everyone. Story 52. In my town, a man accused the local library staff of losing a rare book he'd donated and claimed they had sold it for profit. He posted angrily about it online, tagging the library. The head librarian calmly responded with a scan of the signed donation slip, where he had explicitly written, "Discard if not needed." They also attached a time-stamped photo of him putting the same book into a box labeled "Free for the Taking" at the library's front desk 2 weeks later. The post was deleted within the hour, but screenshots had already gone viral in the local Facebook group. Story 53. A college student accused her lab partner of breaking an expensive microscope and walking away without reporting it. She went to the professor in tears, saying the department should make him pay. The professor checked the lab's camera feed. It showed her forcing the microscope stage too far, hearing a snap, then calling him over. When he said it looked broken, she told him to leave so she could get the professor, then immediately blamed him. She had to cover the repair cost herself and was removed from the course for the semester. Story 54. In my old neighborhood, a woman accused a dog walker of letting one of his client's dogs defecate in her yard without picking it up. She posted photos of the evidence online, tagging the walker's business page. The dog walker recognized the fence in the background and also recognized the date on the photo's metadata, which she hadn't removed. The supposed incident happened a week before he had even taken on that dog as a client. When people started pointing that out in the comments, she deleted her post, but the damage to her credibility in the neighborhood group was permanent. Story 55. At a local farmer's market, a vendor claimed another had stolen her signature pie recipe and was selling it as their own. She confronted them in front of customers, accusing them of copying her exact flavor. The accused vendor invited a couple of regulars to do a blind taste test, hers versus his. Not only did they taste completely different, but one customer pointed out that her recipe had been printed in the town's charity cookbook years before, long before she started selling pies. Turns out, she had borrowed it herself. The crowd laughed, and she packed up early. Story 56. At a corporate training seminar, one participant accused another of stealing her presentation slides during a group project. She told the facilitator she'd been working on them for weeks, only to see them copied in the other group's session. The facilitator pulled both sets of slides from the shared drive. Hers were uploaded 3 hours after the other group's, complete with the same typos and formatting. She'd downloaded their file, changed the font, and claimed ownership. When confronted, she muttered something about a misunderstanding, but she was removed from the seminar and sent home early. Story 57. In my building, a man claimed his neighbor's kid had kicked his car door while riding a scooter, leaving a dent. He demanded the parents pay for repairs. The father checked his dash cam, which was still recording in parking mode. It showed the man himself swinging a heavy grocery bag into his own car by accident, then looking around and spotting the kid nearby. He clearly saw an opportunity, and took it. When the video was shown to him by the building manager, he dropped the claim instantly and hasn't spoken to that family since. Story 58. At my sister's school, a student claimed the art teacher had thrown away her painting out of spite. She cried in front of the principal, saying she'd worked on it for months. The janitor overheard and mentioned finding the painting rolled up in the student's own locker. Security footage confirmed she'd hidden it there earlier that morning, intending to find it later to make the teacher look bad and get transferred out of the class. Instead, she got detention for the rest of the semester and was removed from the art program. Story 59. During a neighborhood yard sale, a woman accused a fellow seller of shortchanging her during a cash exchange. She loudly insisted she'd given him a $50 bill for a $10 item and should have received $40 in change. He calmly pulled out a small security camera he'd set up at his table. It caught her clearly handing him a $10 bill, not a $50. Her face turned pale as onlookers realized she'd tried to scam him in broad daylight. She left without buying anything else, and several neighbors refused to deal with her again. Story 60. At my old workplace, a guy accused the IT department of leaking his personal emails to management, claiming they had it out for him. He said he'd seen his exact words repeated in a meeting. IT pulled the email logs and found no evidence of any breach, but they did find that he'd accidentally CC'd a senior manager when gossiping to a coworker. He'd forgotten the manager was in the group email list and tried to cover his mistake by blaming IT. When the truth came out, he got a formal warning and IT posted a reminder about double-checking recipients in the company newsletter. Story 61. At a regional baking competition, one contestant accused another of stealing her secret ingredient, a rare spice blend she claimed was the heart of her recipe. She told the judges she'd seen him snooping near her station. Before the accusation went further, one of the event staff checked the prep room cameras. It turned out she had left her spice jar in the communal pantry, and he'd never touched it. Worse for her, the footage also caught her tasting one of his cupcakes while he was out of the room, which was against the rules. She was disqualified on the spot, and he went on to win second place. Story 62. In my neighborhood Facebook group, a woman claimed a local teen had been vandalizing her fence with spray paint. As she posted blurry night photos and demanded his parents control their kid. The teen's dad calmly replied with security cam footage. On the same night and at the same time, the vandal was at soccer practice across town. The real kicker? The footage also showed the woman herself painting over an old fence stain to make it look fresh, then taking photos for her post. She deleted the accusations, but not before the screenshots made their way around the entire community. Story 63. At my last job, a new hire claimed her coworker had sent her an offensive meme through the company chat system. She screenshotted the image and showed it to HR, saying she felt unsafe working with him. IT dug into the chat logs and found she'd sent the meme to herself from a fake account she created with his name slightly altered. She'd even saved the profile picture from his LinkedIn to make it look real. When HR confronted her, she broke down and admitted she was trying to get him fired so she could take over his client list. She was gone by the end of the day. Story 64. At a public beach, a man accused a lifeguard of screaming at his kids for no reason. He told everyone the lifeguard had scared them and demanded the city review his conduct. Several people had recorded the incident on their phones, and the videos told a different story. The lifeguard had been shouting for the kids to get out of the water because a dangerous rip current had suddenly formed. The man had been ignoring the whistle and waving him off. Once the footage spread online, he became the local example of why people should listen to lifeguards. Story 65. In a college group project, one student claimed another hadn't done any work and was trying to take credit at the presentation. She emailed the professor a long complaint and asked that he be removed from the group. The professor asked for the project's shared document history. Turns out, the accused student had done 80% of the edits, research, and formatting, while she had only logged in once to change the title page. She ended up getting a failing grade for lack of participation, and the rest of the group finished without her. Story 66. At a city council Q&A session, a man accused the Parks Department of destroying his backyard fence during a tree removal. He waved photos of the damage and claimed crews had driven equipment onto his property. The parks director calmly asked the city surveyor to pull up boundary maps. Turns out the fence was built 2 feet onto public parkland. The damaged section was actually on city property and had been scheduled for removal months earlier. The man's voice cracked when the council president asked if he wanted to file a damage claim for something that wasn't even his. Story 67. In my office, a woman claimed a coworker had stolen her idea for a marketing pitch and presented it to the client without credit. She emailed the entire department, calling it plagiarism. When the client meeting recording was reviewed, it became clear she had never pitched the concept at all. The co-worker's slides matched a draft he'd been working on weeks before she joined the project. The timestamps in the shared folder proved it. She quietly sent out a clarification email later, but the damage to her own credibility stuck for months. Story 68. At a neighborhood barbecue, a man accused a teen of denting his truck with a football. He made a big scene in front of guests, telling the teen's parents they'd better make it right. One guest happened to be taking candid photos during the game, and one shot clearly showed the dent already there before the football even landed nearby. Another picture showed the ball bouncing harmlessly off the grass. The man muttered something about, "Must have been another hit," and left early. But the photos ended up circulating in the neighborhood group chat for weeks.